one question is, since you usually have to work, you usually work with the Chinese investors and Chinese companies that want to enter in Europe, what is the perception of Italy in China in general, and especially about the Chinese investors, if they see the political changes and the instability of the Italian government as a threat, and yeah, what is the perception of Chinese investors about the Italian political situation?
The Chinese in general have a lot of sympathy for Italy. Okay? Very sorry about this political mess. Because they are seriously very, whenever you say to a Chinese or Italian, they open up in his mind. Very nice. From the viewpoint of an investor, yeah, certainly you will not invest in infrastructures. You will not invest in anything which exposes them to a sovereign risk, like they do in England, for example. I don't think they would buy a port or a harbor or an airport or something like that. Yeah. Because they don't like that kind of risk. I don't think they are particularly keen to overexpose themselves in Italian bonds. But in terms of, obviously they're not real estate investors in Italy because the yield is from low. And I mean, the institutional real estate goes for yield. You basically buy stuff based on yield. How much do I get for the rent? And in Italy, how much do you get for the stuff? How much does it cost to support it? So in Italy, there's a lot of very nice things to buy, but the income you get is not great. Okay, so they just like, they're not big investors, big institutional investors. They're big investors in they're significant investors in Canadian real estate, in London real estate, in New York real estate, in Vancouver real estate, Sydney, very big, Hong Kong, obviously. Now, in terms of like the personal, high net worth individual, they tend to, their real estate investment pattern tend to follow their kids' education. So they tend to gravitate toward Anglo-Saxon countries. Okay, the kids study abroad, the family good, they buy apartments, real estate, and so on. The one attractive point that Italy has for them is like either brands or know-how. So if a company has brands and know-how that can help them in the domestic market, then they wouldn't perceive it that risk. And that's the asset class they're after. And in that regard, they're very opportunistic. And if they think, Chinese think, if there's trouble, things are going to be cheap. So they're good buyers. And, generally, they have a good sense, good traders. And when they buy, their investment pattern is industrial investment pattern, because to be differentiated from the energy, resource, agricultural investment pattern, is they buy stuff that gives them a competitive advantage at home. Because the Chinese businessman has his own market growing anything between 10 to 25%. Okay? And the rest of the world growing 2-3%. Europe is zero growth. Why should we worry about what goes on outside of China? So they are really looking at, most Chinese businessmen are focused on creating a competitive advantage at home. Okay? And competitive advantage in Chinese industry mainly means being able to differentiate themselves. Because, as I explained to you yesterday, there's a tendency to overinvest, there's a tendency to overcapacity. The sectors are very fragmented. You have a huge number of players, and they play on low cost and undifferentiated features. Okay? And so the margins get squeezed. And the only way to get from that trap is to be able to say, well, I have superior technology because I have a superior German technology or Italian brand. And so that allows me to charge a premium price. And that is a driver. In that regard, they don't see it as a threat. Okay? Well, obviously, our political instability limits somewhat the possibility of attracting Chinese investment. That's it limits those sectors, but it really doesn't make any difference because we say, why? I mean, why should Chinese money come into infrastructure? Our big problem in infrastructure is not the lack of money, but the bureaucracy to make a project viable. I mean, how many viable projects are you aware in Italy that have not been financed because of lack of money? No, the fact is even unviable projects get financed, but they get stopped because of authorization, corruption, environment. Look at the high-speed line. So it's just like whether that money was available or not does not really make a difference to us. The problem is our problem. It is our problem to be able to have a different system, and more reliable bureaucracy, more streamlined, more efficient system, which is something Anglo-Saxon countries do. So they do. And the fact that our real estate is not worth much, although it can be very beautiful, is a factor of slow economic growth. So apart from the land, demand, there is an abundance. There is an oversupply. And demand is not that strong. Not many people are looking to expand offices or, what is the potential to develop real estate centers if consumption is going down. Again? Okay? That's, obviously they hate the government-to-government approach, literally, because in China there's political continuity, and they hate the fact that they see someone that, they see a minister or like an Italian public figure that they might not see the same person 6 months down the road. So every time they have to start all over. They're very frustrated by this. They're very annoyed at the government level by our insistence to have a dialogue that we inevitably cannot keep up. Something that they bother. And they would like to have a dialogue, they would like to have a strong dialogue with Europe. But, you can have a dialogue with Germany. You can someone have a dialogue with France. It would be fairly reasonable as a party. They would not discriminate. The fact is, who's going to show up today? And who's going to be next? One at a time.
One at a time.
No, then I'll let you forget.
Yes.
Oh,
consumption. So I'm often heard that this new government, this new leadership want to raise the internal consumption to slow down the dependency with the
investment. Yeah.
What are in concrete the measures they're taking to raise internal consumption?
Well, this is a very interesting question. It's about 7 years that I've been hearing that the private consumption should grow in China. I mean, it's not, they do say it themselves, you know, it's nothing new. But things have gotten worse over the last 5-6 years rather than better. So in that regard, as I said yesterday, Chinese politicians are resembling more and more our politicians. They say a lot of things that actually don't happen. Okay? So I sort of like, at the beginning I said, when I first moved back to China, and I was used to China in the 90s, and this is the policy, this is it. So when I moved back to China in 2006, they said that, and it's really going to happen. Then things going to happen in all of this. And the big thing of increasing consumption has been there for. Now, they need desperate, coffee. They need desperately, okay, you know why they need consumption, right? Because as I explained yesterday, their investment is too high, there's too much waste, there's too much overcapacity, there's too much public, redundant public investment, and they want to depend less and less on exports, so they need to rebalance their economy. There's no, in the world, never a country has gone for that long, for that 10, 20 years of growth with that high investment. At some point, there's in some areas, in some years you have high investment, then eventually consumption picks up. But the persistence of this highly intensive model creates a number of distortions. Now, everybody agrees. This administration again has as a goal to increase consumption. What are they going to do? Okay. The things that can be done are several. The first, but they haven't spelled them yet. They have not spelled what is the policy to increase consumption. Okay? So there is no such thing. I mean, you only have, so far, you only have goals. You have no policies. Eventually, at the third plenary of the party in October, we are supposed to have a policy. Okay? But in general, what they should do is, the first thing is forcing state-owned enterprises to pay dividends. Because now state-owned enterprise, we pay the earnings and we invest them. And then, if you get the dividends, you can eventually, get the money out of the state-owned enterprise that represent vast majority of the profits and hand it out to the people some way. Okay? For the second thing that can be done is using that money to create a better welfare system. So people need to save. Anxiety to save for the future is diminished. Okay, I don't want to overplay this. Yes, certainly people think better in their pension, and they don't think they have to save that much for illness, for healthcare. They might spend more. Then, in that case, you have to build up a social safety net. So I would say better welfare, higher dividends from state-owned companies. It would help less corruption, because in reality this inequality, this is happening worldwide. where like the disparity between the rich and the poor and the disappearance of the middle class is happening all over the world. And this is an impact on consumption, because there is so much. I mean, the wealthy can consume up to a point, then they don't know how to spend their money. Okay? So the disappearance of the middle class makes it such that people don't consume. And in China there's a huge black economy which is fueled by corruption, and it's not a highly consumption economy. So that would help, you know, getting the money clean and getting taxes paid would help fund the middle class, fund social services that would convert themselves to consumption, rather than convert themselves into offshore investments or something like that. Okay? Or onshore redundant real estate investment, where we have a lot of equity houses. Another thing that can be done is improve the efficiency of the fiscal system. Personal taxation in China is irrelevant. This is eventually comes. So even though the tax rate, marginal tax rate is probably 50%, people don't care very much, because people, it's like Italy but worse. I mean, they don't have a very, still a very advanced personal taxation system. So they don't capture people, they don't capture that, and that will also help redistribute, because the more you tax the wealthy, then you redistribute to the less wealthy. Okay. So everything can converge: fight corruption, dividend, forcing state-owned enterprise to pay dividends, a better tax collection system, a better welfare system. I mean, you know, these are all things that more some goods, they could have, you have a situation of monopoly, so maybe you have collusion on prices, some prices could come down. Also, that will also help. Another thing that would help would be to let the renminbi appreciate even further, so that if you let the renminbi appreciate even further, you really increase the purchasing power of the average population, because things end up costing less. Okay, so this whole process of renminbi appreciation should go on in such a way that increase the personal consumption and they decrease the surplus, the current account surplus. These are all things that have been mentioned, and but exactly, I cannot tell you. I'm not in a position to tell you what they should do exactly, because I don't know the situation. So I'm not a macroeconomist, but I cannot even tell you what is the policy.
I have a question connected to what you said. So these things you all mentioned are like longer term things that will take time. Everything you mentioned will take time, a year.
Oh, yeah, they don't process the last 50 years.
Is there anything they can do in the shorter run that would boost consumption in a shorter period? Like
yeah, if you
6
value
to
the
9
renminbi,
months?
yes. Forcing state-owned enterprises to pay a high dividend rate and let the renminbi appreciate, that will help.
That would be a shorter. That would be a shorter term. Something
Yeah, those things would help.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, they did let the renminbi appreciate quite a lot, but they were not able to extract dividends.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, really, you don't know how many times. It was decided that state will pay 10% dividend, then never appears. Because you also have that, China's like Italy. You have like, oh, they're going to do such and such. Then that's not really law, it's an announcement. You really have to differentiate between what is an actual law to be implemented, what is an announcement made by some entity that eventually doesn't go nowhere. Now you have to be very careful, you know, in Italy. You know, now the story about the IMU, like property taxes, are they in, are they out, are they in, are they out, I don't know. Because until you read it officially, you don't know. And China is much the same. A lot of announcements that get shaped up to make people believe that that is a done deal. We're like, no way. Well, those things would definitely happen. And then, obviously, they should maybe having a more restrictive lending policy. But then this is the dilemma. If they restrict the lending, the economy is going to slow down. Which, you know, this morning Tokyo opened -7 because the reading in Chinese industrial activity was negative. So yes, they should do, but to have this transition and synchronize it is a hell. So because the only system, so you know, they stop the lending, and then they can try to come back and get the economy in a less distortion mode, but in the meantime, the economy goes down. Even if one thing they should do is should start paying like a real interest rate on deposit, so people are not penalized for leaving their money in the bank. But if they do, all of a sudden real estate investment comes down, which could be a good thing in the long term, but the short term is a disaster. This morning the whole world was like upside down. Tokyo -7. Why? Because there was a HSBC reading of manufacturing activity in China, it was below 50. When the PMI indicator is below 50, means that China is not growing. Industrial activity is not growing, that's a bad sign. And that was, the market didn't like it. I don't know how it's going to end up, but today the markets are bumpy. So this is why I'm saying it's going to be a bumpy road. And at some point, you know, they know they can't let it go, but something is not picking up, and don't worry, you know, it's not going to happen, this natural thing, because they push too much in one direction. Okay? I think they should have let it go way back. This is, when you have a rigid political system, you have fantastic machines. They go very fast on a straight road. In more flexible political systems, you have a lot of efficiency in decision making, but you have more adaptive systems. So you have cars that do very well on the winding road because they can adjust. Okay? They're probably not very efficient and so on, they adjust. The system now is sort of rigid. It goes very, very well in one direction. Turning direction is sort of technical. And when Deng Xiaoping changed direction in 1979, he didn't have that many vested interests. First of all, it was a struggle for him anyway. He struggled for years and years and years. In 1992, he had to go back to Shenzhen, and he was already very old to signal how much he sustained the change. I mean, the vested interests against change are significant. Because consumption is now like 35% of GDP, and it should maybe become double. And so you basically have to change the GDP mix. You have to take a lot of money out of the hands of a few people and give it to and distribute to a lot of people. And taking the money out of a few people, I'm talking about the state-owned enterprises and the bureaucrats and the head of the investment bureau and all that is very difficult. And then once you do that, to redistribute that money, once you're dealing with 1.5 million people, it's a mess. The scale of the problem is gigantic. Now, one thing is to do in Korea with 40 million people, but Korea is less than half of the region in China. And I is twice Korea. It's a scale of the problem because it's not, because in the end, who actually does things are the counties and the provinces, and it's not really Beijing. So I think there's to be delegated. Beijing wants to make sure that things are done uniformly, and keeping uniform policy and enforcing uniform policy is a huge challenge when you have a country of that size. In that case, that is really different. It's the size of the problem.
That was one of my questions as well. So we've been studying the political system in China and all the different levels. I'm wondering, in real life, how are these levels connected together, and how efficient is the system? Because when you study on paper and when you live in China, you kind of get this idea. It's very complex, very, very complex. And I'm wondering if it's too much complexity. I mean, how can you deliver reform with such a huge and complex system? I don't know if I made myself clear. So there's the central government, then the region, then the provinces, then the party and the government. Do you think it's efficient? Do you think that they will need to change it at one point? Are they changing it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons the system is so complex is also the size of the problem. To manage that many people, you need many layers of management. Okay? It's just like you can't centralize a country like that. So size brings complexity. How efficient is the political decision making? You're asking me?
Yes.
How efficient is that? Well, to be honest, it's difficult to say because it's not very transparent. Okay? So people don't disagree in public, so it's very difficult for me you don't know what's happening, why things happen. Unless you really want to, and then you make like that reason of life, and then you stay in Beijing and you talk to people, but that's something that I can't afford to, because it's life. To figure out who says what, because what happened here, who says what, you see it every night on TV, even too much, Every night you have like 15 different parties saying 15 different things, and it's like, and I do watching the news, okay? Over there, you can watch all the news you want, just people don't speak. It's all very much, so in the case, it's not really transparent. Now, the fact is, the lack of transparency right now, since I come from a situation where it's way too transparent, is ineffective. It doesn't bother me that much, because I don't have that audible sound of politics in my ear, which is totally. In any case, going back to your question, yeah, it's a very complicated process. You never know the outcome. There are parties within the party, and there are also institutions that are represented to some extent, because many institutions not only have like different rivers among institutions, but institutions are also highly personalized. So within the same institution, you can have different streams obey to different people, and because it's a highly the level of China is a highly personal network country, much more than you can imagine. Okay, so it used to be way more simpler, okay? Now things have happened, as I say, that we have very strong opposition group. You have a family who are very wealthy and they have a say. You always had a very wealthy bureaucracy, a very strong bureaucracy in China, and the bureaucracy has something to say. You start having, you do now, as you did then, have ideological fights within the party. You have the right, you have the left, and they fight. They sort of have to guess who's there, who's not there, but eventually, there are a whole reviews about who represents what, and who makes the standing committee, and people bet and so on. But one thing I can tell you for sure is the decision-making process is very complex and not transparent. Once the decision is made, it's made. I mean, once the decision is made, you go one way, that's it. When you finally get to the point of making a decision, there's no way back. Which is not the case in many other situations, okay? You have the irrational situation in many other. Like in the States, you have this story about the gun law, and kids just go out with a machine gun and kill 30 students, they still don't have a gun control, they just don't. So it's not like that the world is black and white, but at least in China there's no turning point. And for example, I experienced that. I mean, in my little thing, at some point I had to appoint the head of the China practice, and I have two contenders, and I decided to entrust the business to the much younger partner of mine, who was a baby, and there was a much more senior person, and at least 15 years senior, got bypassed. Okay, so but what I did is I didn't make it explicit, and I said from now on the business is like Jenny's in charge of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and Minghui is in charge of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Obviously, if you read what Jenny was in charge, she was in charge of all the important things. So it was obvious. But I left the level of ambiguity, because what I didn't want Minghui to abruptly lose face. I was really very concerned about this issue of having someone who's, I mean, someone senior to be told in front of everybody he's going to have to respond to a much younger person who had a much lower rank within the party and so on. So the problem proved, sort of went on for a while, and then all of a sudden exploded. And a big thing, and a big clash. So I went over to when my shareholder and said, what am I going to do now? I mean, what do you suggest? I said, you made a mistake. Because at some point, you can go on, but at some point you have to tell who's the boss. And that it can be, take all the time you want to make a decision, once you make a decision, that's the decision. And playing with ambiguity ain't going to get you anywhere, unless you make it clear. So immediately went back, I made an email that says this, the system is this, Jack is the boss, and all that. Finished. I was finished. So playing with ambiguity doesn't really help. The system is not efficient, necessarily, but people run. Okay? Now, you have a bloated public system where people are paid very much comparatively. They have a lot of perks. Their pay doesn't really mean much because they have the house paid, in some cases they have the food paid, they have the school paid, you know. And which is, and civil servants are not particularly efficient. I mean, they waste a lot of time, it takes a long time for them to get things done. But at least there is a sense of hierarchy. I mean, you never fire people, you know, it's like that's not acceptable, you know, lay them off. But there is a sense of discipline, even though the system is not efficient. In the private sector, the opposite system is brutal, absolutely brutal. And you get rid of people overnight. One day you're power, the following day you're gone. Now they made some labor laws and they create some protection. But I'm always like in dealing with staff and personnel, I'm always left behind on it. You know, I'm always like careful. We should give an exit. We should do this. We should do that. And even now, this new labor system. They always fire people sooner. They always pay less compensation. I'm always way more generous and way more having this heritage I have. But the system in the private sector is very brutal for our standards. For European standards, for US standards, similar. Okay? But for European standards, the system is one day you're on, one day you're off. The inefficiency in the private sector stands in the fact that, like word like empowerment, delegation, they are not necessarily part of the culture as much as they have gotten to the culture. In Western society, men in the culture, we talk about empowerment, how you have to be reactive to change. In order to be in a changing world, you have to enforce it, you have to give power to the people in the first line to rapidly adjust, making their own decisions. They cannot call their superior they send the superior to decide when to give you discount or something like that. All this infusion of empowerment, delegation, and so on has not really got into the dictionary in China. I mean, the owner, the boss, calls the shot, and he makes a lot of decisions that otherwise would be made by other people. So they look very much like the Italian entrepreneur of the early post-war period. You know, people who created the company from scratch and they call the shot. They hire and fire, they decide the size of the window, and, you know, they let the company grow, and they think that they decide the size of the window payers. And that becomes a problem. Because the carpenter there gets stuck for 2 weeks until the boss decides how the window and all the repairs. So now, you know, we get to a point where even like in the process of internationalization, it's this strongly hierarchical boss center system with a fairly low degree of autonomy is slowing down the decision-making process. They really have to work a lot in that regard. Because it's still like the culture where, like, you know, spend most of his time in the factory. So the die is an encumbrance, not because he wants to be informed. Because it's the way he grew up. He grew up in the factory. So he goes down to the shop floor like 5 times a day, so he's tired. He's a useless tool, might get trapped in the machine. Did I answer your question?
I have another one. I'm sorry. I'm wondering if there's any difference in the younger generation.
Oh, geez.
Like if they're more management oriented or.
See, no, then the delight is the youngest generation, because every 5 years younger, they got better and better. And the young Chinese are fantastic, because they're international. They kept all the gentleness and kindness elements of their culture. They're like make a big effort to understand, and they're very open. They're fairly international, in spite of everything which is being said. This is true, they can go on Facebook, but there's a lot of things you can get from the firewall. I mean, I know they can be on Facebook or on Twitter, like, you can get on any magazine in the world, and they all speak, just like there is a big incentive to speak English, many of them speak English, there's like a huge number of graduates, actually even too many. So it's, the best answer that China has are the young people, because they're a delight. I like the generation above 60 is still the old idealistic, non-materialistic kind of stuff, which I don't mind. I like them. And the generation below 30 are these new young Chinese that can blend the best of both worlds, which I do like. If I have a problem, it's the generation in the middle, which is the least, the one like a bureaucrat in the mid-40, it's too late to change, and probably doesn't, this is, that is giving me the highest concern. Not the good old wise person who went through the Cultural Revolution and seen many things, and he sort of has a sense of life, he's thankful for what he got, he thinks of how many things he went through and survived through. All the young people who had it, who had many things, and were able to enjoy life and have a computer like that, and smartphone and everything, and they chit-chat and go to disco and everything and so on. The only problem is that the pressure of Tiger Mom and Wolf Dad get married too early, right? Because Tiger Mom and Wolf Dad want the grandchildren. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, a little bit.
but now the children are just like pushing it off, right?
The young people don't want more independence, so I'm the only one in my family. My mom, she did worry about my stuff, but she comes in.
You see? Yeah. No, you start having it. What was your question? Was it the question? Yeah, the young, the families. I love being with them. I love to be with you all because I asked them about the history, this and that, and they're really nice. And then I like to be with the young because, they can tell. And they listen and they answer questions. They can be very critical. It's going well.
I guess this question kind of connects to what she was saying. I'm curious about, I know that retaining talent and finding qualified staff is an issue in China for multinationals to come in.
It is a nightmare.
So do you have any suggestions for like multinationals that would come in, or any solutions for a company coming into China for the first time?
Today, one of my guys all of a sudden resigned. No previous signal of satisfaction, no, nothing. We received the email, he resigned, period. And this is so frustrating in China, I have no idea. Investing in someone and then teaching, and then all of a sudden the government wants that boom, bingo. Not to be ever complained about the bonus or the salary, nothing. Gone. One email, gone. Now, retaining talent is one of the most difficult challenges in China. Because there is a huge demand for, there is a huge drive for the upgrading of the economy. So there is a tremendous because the renminbi is going up, because now they're no longer the lower cost, so you need to move up the value-added chain, and moving up the value-added chain means you need talent. You no longer need undifferentiated labor, okay? So, the way to retain it is
and maybe not just to retain
is the biggest issue. Now, I mean, listen, if you had asked me this question yesterday, I would have said, I would have been more secure. You know, having received this email about like an hour ago, just before leaving, I don't feel very secure, but you know, what I did, and I was very proud of the low very high retention rate in my team, was first of all, always give them the goal. I mean, make them feel the organization was thriving and they were going somewhere. Okay? Because if they think that they're sitting on a machine going nowhere, then you lose them. So, making them feel that the thing is going. Now, we are doing things. You know, we're knitting now, moving to Germany, moving to a bigger fund, you know, getting the side, opening office and getting new people, this thing. The second thing is providing them with a lot of education. Okay? And which is a retention tool, because, to the extent they think they're learning, they stick with you. Then you don't have to watch the salary like crazy. You know, you can't miss a blip. If you miss once to give an adequate salary increase, you might lose the staff. So you have to be very careful about what is the current salary rate, what are the increases in salaries, what are the bonus expectations out there in the market. You have to monitor that. Not once a year. Not once a year. You might not get a chance. You might not get a chance to go at the end of the year. Okay? So it's because the salary increase for middle management is way, way more than inflation. Way, way more. In spite of all this, they leave. Now that feel wise leaving. I had one guy left because he felt there was too much pressure, and he went back to CBD, was a state bank, it was my shareholder, they had a much easier life, and not that much pressure on work, because we felt that the parents had to be taken care of. Okay, so we could not afford to work that much. Because what happened is, with the only child, having a child is fairly easy, because you have the grandparents fighting over the child. So one week you have the parents of the wife, the other weekend the parent of the husband. You're never left without with anybody taking care of the kids. Plus, I am very cheap. So this is wonderful. It's not, having a child is not a big problem, okay? But then when the child grows up, you are alone, you and your wife, you and your husband are alone taking care of 4 elders. And that's a big toll, because the elderly care system is not great, okay? And many times you have to move away from your family of origin, and nobody's left there to take care of the grandparents. So totally left for that reason. Because if we look in the future, like my mother had a stroke, and I need to spend more time with my parents, and obviously it was on the kidding side. Now Jeff is leaving because he's going to business school in the US. He's going to California. So I didn't make sense out to Tony, I didn't make sense out to Jeff. Jeff got 750, the GMAT. The guy was working like 24/7. I mean, I used to send emails to him on Saturday morning, 3 in the morning, his time, he didn't reply. I asked him things to do, and he said, when do you need it, boss? So, up to you. I mean, like a week? No, because they think you need it in 2 hours. You know? When I said, don't worry, next Friday it's fine, because they said, what do you need? They expect that you need it in 3 hours. See what I mean? That was, and also Jeff said, we want to go to business school. I thought we would myself, well, it's theoretical, because he's working so much, how is that going to start in GMAT? I said, no, Jeff, probably go to business school. You know, you have to apply, plus the exam to study. I took the GMAT. I did the exam. Wait for it. How do we got 750? Yeah, 750. Eh? They're very good, yeah, because they're. Yes, that's a very good point, Sam. Say.
Yeah, because it's very difficult. Like in my high school, every day I have friends.
Yeah, they have the school system is very exam intensive. So an Italian kid coming, I mean, for them to take those tests to go to business school is a piece of cake, because they are so trained to be under pressure and taking exam under time pressure that the exam to go to Anglo-Saxon school is nothing. Kids, I mean, Italian kids come to me and they say, oh, better, I really want to go to Harvard. Good, and you have to do the exam. Oh my God, I have to take the exam. Oh, I'm never gonna pass. Okay? Exactly. No. No, Chinese take piece of cake. They're used to.
But I think the educational system in my country is not that good, because they keep people's how to say, innovations and things. Because I have a machine, you can just pass and then I think some point not that good.
So yes, you said it all. I mean, this system, which is very selective, very pressure, is very classical system. Exam, this is the answer. There's a big debate. This system is not creative. It doesn't let the kids think laterally. It doesn't foster innovation. Okay, I've been reading what Chad just said. It's the big issues. That the kids are not really innovative because they come out one way.
It is too much competitive. Remember, we met last year in the secondary school. You met last year had 55 or 7 people. Finally, only 11 people get the chance to go to university, and the rest don't have to read. Too many.
They think it's too many competitive, but this is what keeps China competitive. You know, when kids that grow up in this is what I'm saying, it's going to be bumpy, but when kids that grow up in such a competitive system, they're damn good. So she sees one side of the coin, okay? She says it's too competitive, too much work. Well, I can tell you that you have a young generation now that is used to competition ever since they're 4 years old. So they are used to fight for what they get, and you know, in order to go to university, they have to go and do exams. So they're not really afraid about working hard, studying hard. They're not afraid of stress. They're not afraid of. So this is what makes the country strong. And I don't get that feeling by talking to Italian kids. Oh, the exam, no, I'm not gonna do it. You know. So, but then the debate is, you know, they don't let us think laterally. They're not innovative. We're not creative. Okay? But from my viewpoint, I think they're very creative. Anyway, so from my viewpoint, I don't think they're not creative. I think they have a lot of answers and very quickly finding their way around. So I tend to dismiss the self-criticism. But there's a big debate in China about schools. Very big. Really, really. But that challenge. But I feel and then okay, that was a question. What was the question? We got lost.
Yeah. You responded. About the new generation.
So the new generation, like, I mean, I don't know. Did you know them?
Yeah.
Did you know each other? I mean, it's just like as you go across the jam is going to speak to me and going to tell you everything. The fact is, you know, just ask a question, okay? I mean, this is my first rule in China is I don't tell anybody what to do. I don't. They're used to, they come to me and they throw this big problem on my plate. They just give the big problem. And I said, what would you do? They know exactly what to do. Send them and do it. Why do you bring this problem to me? They know exactly what is right, what is wrong. You know what problem? Simply tell them to take care of it. No, ask for a suggestion and tell them to take care. They know how to take care, but the system is such that you have to ask the boss. But I really don't want to be the boss. It's nice not to be the boss. Because you get all the respect of the boss, but then if you're in power, you have no pressure. Okay? You have to check this out. I don't know.
I've never done it. My question is a little bit related to hers. I would like to know what are the key issues of the Chinese culture.
Probably there are many. I mean, the first thing is you don't ever embarrass the Chinese in public. Never do that. Even if you're in private, you always find the indirect way. You just like the whole like Anglo-Saxon thing, you know, just do this, do that. No, always find ways to politeness and not like direct confrontation. Always works better. Decision, very much, you know, drive decision on consensus. Get the, you know, they don't like conflict. Not the way we like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of that ain't gonna go. They don't like this conflictual thing, where this like macho sort of thing. I mean, let things go, let things to be discussed. They have the culture of the boss, where they think, you know, they're nothing. Any problem arrives, they just ask the boss knows. But then this is the system you have to fight, otherwise the organization doesn't work. Otherwise, you send the foreigner to China and all the Chinese know exactly what's wrong, what's right. They feel they have to ask you. You tell them to do stupid things, and just like because they don't even tell you that they simply execute. They can execute stupid orders for respect to you, even if they intuitively think it's wrong. But they won't tell you, no, I think you're wrong. So this is the danger. You might just like spend the respect for the boss is such that they comfort you. So it's a lot of consensus. Tough language doesn't work. Confrontation doesn't work. Conflict doesn't pay. Let the consensus go. Be patient. Don't force the situation. These are like, I mean, practically speaking, these are the things. And use smiles. Don't threaten. No, if you threaten, you get the exact opposite. Okay? They have an incredible sense of humor. It doesn't say they look shy, but you know, they are ready for the joke immediately. It is absolutely not what they look like. If you can break through them, really approach everything with a smile, because they're behind the shade of what you think is shyness or formality. Behind it, they are like very, very informal and easygoing. Either these big Chinese parties, if you go and where you have like everything done, and the official parties. If it is like big side is Western and big side is Chinese, then everything is going to go and nobody's going to move. But if you happen to be the only Western, you sit at your table with your seat assigned. The dinner starts after 2 minutes. You are the only one sitting down. They're all gone, talking to each other. They don't get off the table. All gone, talking to each other. Okay? So when you get to be very, so you have to understand these things. These are my basic rules. Now I cannot really write. I mean, I would have to think about. I don't have a dictionary of. I never made myself a list of all the things I did wrong and I should not have done. But for example, I don't carry out negotiation because I'm very patient. So at some point I get nervous, but you have to be very patient. They don't have the sense of urgency that we do. They don't pay that much. So I mean, in my case, being patient, I always let other people carry the negotiation, and I stay behind because I could make a mistake. I could lose my temper, and then if I offend someone, it's gone, it's finished. It's just finished. I mean, beyond repair. This is, my rules. I asked them what to do. I forced them to contradict. It was very hard at the beginning because they were dealing with our investee company, and you could see the opposite here in Italy, in Germany. We think we're gonna a company with a board of directors made of Italian can make intelligent decisions about what to do in China. Impossible. Okay? So my guys at some of the companies, they decide to do this, and that is ridiculous. They become insane. I'm gonna make Mr. Maradona lose face. Just write like this. So I did like for years, and I've been training people. It was shadow writing. We're like email with everybody in CC, and the Italians saying something very stupid, and Michael, my colleague, not there to say it was very stupid, but he dared to tell me. So he would pass the email to me. I would draft the response he would copy and paste and respond. And so eventually learn. Now it's just like you get. Well, it took me a while to say no. I'm just like there are ways. Don't worry too much about making Mr. Malagoi lose face. You're not. They're gonna appreciate if you say the nice way.
Can I say something?
Please.
Like they were influenced by the Confucius philosophy. In your countries, we normally don't have lady first, but now when all this country happened. But normally we are elder first, like the seniors first, is like this. Yes, I think we can manage.
Absolutely. Which is great. I forgot this very important thing, Jack. Which is great. My age is great. I talk to my son, he doesn't give a damn. I go to China, everybody listens to me. I feel great.
It's not only about the boss, but also
because I'm older, yeah. I mean, they don't think I'm an old piece of junk. Maybe they do, but I mean, they don't show it, okay? So they make any effort to be nice to me and to give me importance. They don't make me feel useless. So this is a great place to be when you start being 57 plus. So please add anything you want. You're a great resource.
Also, when you are 40 years old, I mean, also, I use it. Yeah. I went to acupuncture 2 days ago. There was a Chinese doctor here for a couple of weeks. He told me, well, you're not too bad. You are middle aged. So it's so depressing.
Well, I have a question is related to the strength of the renminbi. Since you mentioned the appreciation of the renminbi, but my question is, how do you see could be the international currency exchange market related to the renminbi in relation to the dollar and the euro?
Yes.
Do you see an appreciation also?
Well, the appreciation, the renminbi is appreciated some 25 to 40% versus the dollar. So nobody is claiming that the renminbi is a manipulated currency anymore. We don't hear that anymore. That's off the agenda. Now is on the agenda is a cyber war for Pacific people, but no longer the appreciation of the renminbi. Now, appreciation of the renminbi was good because it just like it does help the rest of the world export to China. It does facilitate increasing consumption. But up to a point, because now China is no longer a low-cost destination. Because workers in China cost, if you can find them, cost 300 euro easily. Okay, if you get like specialized in something, this is problematic. And labor is really cheap in the Philippines, in Bangladesh, in Cambodia, Vietnam, and so on. Less than half. So now China is losing a lot of value-added productions. I mean, not losing, but for example, textile is not growing anymore. They used to manufacture toys, especially in the South, like Christmas ornaments, furniture. I mean, that whole tech stuff is really going off. The Chinese themselves are relocating their manufacturing activities in the lower cost countries, Bangladesh, and so on. And which is great because I forgot to mention it sooner. When you ask about how do you distribute income, it's like by increasing salaries. That's a form of distribution, so that the system is really let salary negotiation go. I mean, there'd be like pressure at the company level to have better working condition, but more higher salaries. There's been like strikes and everything. No, I mean, this is the government set guideline will be like a good range, but they let that happen. They let that happen. Now, the other side of the coin is a country that goes toward a higher level of salaries have to change the structure of the economy and move into more value-added products. He has to, because there are two ways to compete in the world. Either you make things cheaper than anybody else, or you make things that other people cannot make. So this is forcing the whole upgrading of the industrial structure in China. And that is what is taking all the Chinese companies to make investment in Alabama to buy technology. This is the whole big drive toward like high-tech investment and toward making more sophisticated product, better quality product. This is a whole drive. Because also the distribution that is in consumption goes to, in Italy didn't happen because people more and more. But if you really exaggerate, then you start losing whole pieces of manufacturing. Okay, but unfortunately in China now we have a problem with the scarcity of labor because it's tipping, the market is tipping with the one-child policy now. Okay, so there are not that many. The number of new people joining the workforce is going down. So now, in this regard, China does not have that problem. But if you want to make all the countries, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, made that transition. That is, you don't remember that, but like 30 years ago, Japanese car were junk. 15 years ago, Korean cars were junk. Okay? Now Japanese car and the Infiniti and so on compete with the German cars. Like 30 years ago, the Japanese car was a piece of junk. And then they moved up, and they were able to make that transition to go from a low cost, low income country and to progress towards advanced countries with incorporating more innovation, more value-added in its products, and innovating, improving processing product. Now, if you moving from this end, from low cost to a high margin situation, you have to go over the so-called middle income ramp. It's an economic term, which is not every country is doing. Some countries cannot manage to go over this bump, okay? They go up to a certain point, then they cannot make the transition up. Just give me an example of a country that didn't manage. North African country never managed.
American country considered Argentina.
Yeah, I mean, South America is not really managed that. I mean, the ones who have managed the best are what were the former economic tigers. So way over. Now, China is at the point where, it doesn't want to fall into that. And the sort of restructuring is, the key question is, will China fall into the middle income trap? Now,
but also, even if you compare this whole story, it was very, from my point of view, very clear when the world market was much more segmented. So the problem was where countries growing, okay, domestically was too difficult to jump. Now, if there are several countries that was able to jump because it was able to connect with the growing countries. So that's it's not so easy anymore to say to understand what is the middle income trap. Although the history everything wrong, of course.
It's, after the dismantling, never really meant the transition to become.
For me, actually, the problem of Dutch disease, you export a lot of raw materials, gas and oil, and so you have a lot of
overvalued recurrence.
More than a million contract. So again, it's very difficult to understand. But yes, it's a problem. We have to change. The problem means the real problem, even the income trap means that you have to change model. What you said before. You
have to change model. You can't just keep going making things cheap.
Exactly.
Okay, because you need to increase demand, you need to reduce demand.
Yeah, so you need to change it. It's not simply you have to one more step and another one. You need to change the system. So this is why you're stuck, because it's very difficult.
Now, for example, before I told you that the industrial system in China is very fragmented. For example, in the car sector, there are 100 players in China. Look at the marginal one. But China is the world's largest auto market with about 20 million vehicles, and the largest industrial manufacturer is about 2 million. There are 15 large industrial manufacturers. They are around 1 million plus or minus. And even the car sector is very fragmented because like GM or Toyota, they make 7, 8 million. You cannot compete globally in the car sector if you have players. You have, on the one hand, you have the advantage of having the largest market in the world, that your players are midgets. Okay? Now, how come that? How come they're midgets? Because each one of the major provinces wants his own champion. So you do have 15 car companies, but you have, each Guangdong or Guangzhou automobile, and we have Geely, am I right or wrong? Geely is in Anhui, or Sherry? Geely is in Anhui. First Auto Work is in Changchun, SAIC is in Shanghai, and so on. And Beijing Auto is in Beijing, and the fact is in China it's very difficult to consolidate, to merge, because in this process of industrial upgrade, where innovation becomes more important, you need scale. You need scale to innovate, because the bigger you are, the more you can afford to develop products. So in consolidating, advancing sector, you have a process of consolidation. Process of consolidation in China are never happening. They're not really happening, and which is a factor of two things. One, the legislation, the legal system for merging is not very clear. Not very easy to merge companies for a legal viewpoint. But you have the second big problem, which is provincial autonomy. How do you win over 2 or 3 battling provinces, each of one battling for his own champion? Because when you restructure and consolidate, you're going to have to close factories, you have to decide where the headquarters is going, and now the provincial power is quite big. And the local power hinder very much the process of consolidation across China. So even though we look at China as one market, in reality, in many regards, it's more than one market. Okay, it looks on surface as one market, but it's very provincialized. And to win over and to be able to make industrial champions over such a fragmented political system, it's not necessarily too easy. Okay? It's not as easy as before. And if you notice, how many really big global Chinese companies do you have? With well-known brands. Samsung, LG, and Hyundai, and so on, Toyota, Nissan, Honda, and so on. That after all these years, this is difficult to come in China. And this is the nature of the provincial fragmentation, the fragmentation of the political power. Because those people in the provinces, they are not born in the province, they go back and forth. You know, and they don't, you know, there are local constituencies they have to obey to. And this I see as a major unexplored item. I mean, not much talked about. And I started writing about this, the difficulty in consolidating companies across sectors. Also because local politicians, they, rather than facing the problem of, you know, consolidation occurs because some firms die. You know, simply another way consolidation occurs and the status of increased competition, some firms die and some firms survive. But if they keep the tap open, if they keep the bank giving them money, company never die. And this is one of the problems with the financial system, with the politically driven financial system. I mean, you don't want to be, if you're governor of a province, you don't want a province you don't want a company in your province to die. You prefer to keep it alive and pass on to another job. But then the nice guy who comes is going to do the same. So it's very difficult in China to get rid of an efficient company, to merge them, unless there is a banking crisis. Unless the bank can know more. And we are very much ahead in this regard. As a matter of fact, the share of Chinese market represented by local brands is declining. If you look at the Chinese market, I think more than 60% of the brands are foreign. Even though, because what happens is there's a Chinese car company that has its own brand, and then has a joint venture with Volkswagen, or a joint venture with Honda. We can have one Volkswagen for van, one for Honda for sedan, and plus make a sedan under its own branding, different distribution system. So the share of market represented by foreign brands is growing, and the well represented by local brand is shrinking. So people are buying more and more Volkswagen, more and more Hyundai, more and more, or should we not talk about luxury cars, but like local brands are not growing significantly. That, you know, and generally the auto system is so complex, industrially, generally a pulse of the industrial level of the country. In that regard, it's very disappointing what's going on in China. Nobody focusing, nobody claiming, nobody making the point that you really in China needs 2 big players, each with 7-8 million cars each. Not 15 players that have more or less than the cars. Even Fiat, that we think is a loser, at 5 million. The largest Chinese players is more than Fiat. And we all think that Fiat does have the scale to compete globally. That you didn't know. Eh? What? You have left China for 4 years? But you'll be back.
Not really. I went back when I mean, the past 4 years.
You have been back, right?
I was living in Turkey, so I don't know too much about just know that we want kind of.
don't see many, well, in Rio may see a lot of GV action. But yeah,
We have a GV one.
yeah.
You can stop giving.
In the 90s, Southeast Asia was like bingo, like Jakarta, Bangkok, KL, Singapore itself. It was like booming, okay? You know, great life and everything. China in the 90s was still sort of difficult. No, not difficult, but you know, it was, you know, you go to China, you go in a hotel, you stay in a hotel. I mean, they were not like restaurants. I mean, you know, you live from hotel to hotel. You know, yes, people in the street, but not, you know, still. And that was fabulous. 19 Southeast Asia. Then the Asia crisis came, and they hit Southeast Asia, especially not China. China did pretty good. In Southeast Asia and Korea. And ever since that, then things turned. In 2000, China came up and Southeast Asia is okay. I mean, it's great, you know, doing fantastic, eventually recovered, but what's the point of going to Vietnam? Is 8 million people? It's less, no, it's less than China province. You know? I mean, now for me, it's not, it's not the game. I mean, the game is much more interesting in China. You have the outbound dimension, money going out, emerging power, the geopolitical dimension. Also, Shanghai especially. Shanghai is a very, very international city, you know. It makes New York pale to some extent. Number of bars and restaurants, the community you have in Shanghai is incredible. That's mostly Shanghai.
You spend most of your time in Shanghai? You're based there?
Well, yeah, at the beginning I had a house in Hong Kong and a house in Shanghai. And I had a very good social life in both places, very different. In Shanghai, there is like the crazy social life, where you just like, you start at 7 o'clock and you go to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning. You go from place to place. It is like, and places are unbelievable. The restaurants are like, I've never seen anything like that. Very, very, very trendy, very modern. Also, everybody's going to Shanghai now. I mean, every businessman, everything, everybody's going there. So it's big, big. Great food, great people, great company, great lounges, discos, stuff, and bars. Very hectic. And, not too hectic. So I got tired a little bit of that life. And the opposite in Hong Kong is interesting in a different way because there's more culture. I mean, I'm a member of the Asian Society, I'm a member of the Anthropological Society, I'm a member of the Geographical Society, I'm a member of the Harvard Club, I'm a member of the Harvard Business School Club. So you have all these cultural activities in Hong Kong that you don't have in Shanghai. So in Hong Kong, everything is easy because basically, even though it's big, but like, these things happen within 20 buildings, okay? So everything is easy and you get everywhere, and you have this event at 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock you're done. More, my lifestyle is very different. Hong Kong is more cultural, international song. Shanghai was like, you know, let's go and drink and drink and drink and drink and drink. But then, I must say, moving to the province in incredible airports. Okay, so airports are fantastic. Over. I'm not sure FA. Well, is it your airport in FA? In FA. FA.
They're trying to move somewhere, but
Yeah, this is one exception. But I've been to a lot of them. You have like fantastic oversized airports. That the airports in the States are junk compared to, they're overcrowded, a lot of controls. Then you have like brand new hotels. Brand new hotels with everything totally done for your computer, broadband, and with 25 plugs, very easy. You don't have to go around the room looking for plugs, They're fantastic. But still, traveling is comfortable. But then if you go to these places, the problem is social activity ain't there. I mean, you work and drink. You drink. You drink a lot out of the province. But still, travel is good because, we arrive, the luggage arrives immediately, drivers, and going to hotels, and they pick up your luggage, and they come out and to greet you. This wonderful lady, Mr. Forchielli, so you feel like the dimension is not very, also my Chinese colleague would take care of everything, so it was pretty good. Now I have to be in Beijing, and in Beijing life, work is much more interesting because you meet much more interesting people. Really, the financial centers in Beijing, the banks are there, the major corporations are all there, and so on. But socially, Beijing is not comparable to Shanghai. First, because the distance is very big. Beijing is very big. The traffic is horrendous because you can get stuck 2 hours in the traffic. So it's so you try to move as least as possible. And enough in my life.
and the pollution?
And
Still good.
see, the pollution is bad. It was bad in Shanghai too. Actually, pollution doesn't bother me. Pollution doesn't bother me because I don't go in the street. You see, so a few days, all of a sudden, if the wind doesn't blow, you have this terrible fog. What do I care? I don't go out, okay? It doesn't affect me. You're in Shanghai. In Shanghai, you walk a little bit more, but still. The one problem is you cannot stay in the summer when it's very hot. The pools are all indoor, and that makes summer not nice in Shanghai. Because you just like living indoor through a summer ain't great. That's summer is my weak spot in Asia because in Shanghai, in Beijing you have to live indoor. I mean, not even an outdoor pool. And in Hong Kong you have typhoon season, so there are typhoons every other day. And also Hong Kong now is getting to be polluted. So this is why in the summer, I try to accommodate negotiate jobs to be here to like the end of your year, and that is the beginning of my summer. I try to stay in there more and more. Okay, next. What do you want to discuss about?
I have a question about the economic relationship, the evolution of the economic relationship between China and the United States. Because it seems that they depend on each other, but it seems that the relationship is not, is kind of distorted, because China was, in the past years, was financing US debt in order to maintain the consumption over the equilibrium and keeping on buying Chinese goods. So how do you see this relationship going on? If it's changing, is in which direction is it moving?
Difficult to predict. Right now, in the history of mankind. Once every few centuries, you have transition where you have a power, a nation state that become prevalent over another one. Now this is our privilege is to assist with such phenomenon, by which by 2020 eventually the Chinese economy should become bigger than the American economy, and so we are living through a period of power transition. Like in the history of mankind, power transition has rarely gone smooth. However, the ones who lose don't like to lose, and generally ends up in war. That's what history has told us. Okay? So it's not, so, you know, not that the Americans like to become number two. They really don't like, but it's inevitable not that they don't like. Now we're living through this transition. At times it will be peaceful, a few times. Like the transition you had between England to the United States, that was peaceful. I mean, the British Empire accommodated the US and let the US go through. But the transition you had between France and England wasn't smooth. You had two Napoleonic wars that were a disaster. When Germany tried to twice to overwhelm the economic, the UK, that didn't go smooth because we had two wars. And before that, France had to go to war with Spain, England had to go to war with Spain. So we had a lot of, in the West, we have this transition have never gone very smooth. So while on the economic front, the US and China are totally complementary. I mean, they need each other, which is very good. Economic interdependence is the best thing to have. Okay? History, I don't know who said it, that never a war happened between two countries that both had McDonald's. Okay? But you have this strange relationship between the US and China, which is love and hate. Because on the one hand, the Chinese like the US a lot. They adore US movies. They would like to have as many as possible. They adore going to school to the US. They like many things in the US, and on the other hand, they feel they have a strong feeling against the US. Okay, because in the beginning, especially in the post, you know, when the communists came to power in '49, the US was supporting the regime of Chiang Kai-shek, the Kuomintang. Okay, that eventually lost and escaped to Taiwan. That's the former nationalistic government. That was in power from was a very confusing period from early 1930 to 49. Then lost to the communists. But the Americans at that time, they were in a rage against, they already saw communism as a big enemy in the Soviet Union. So they could not make a distinction, okay? They were not smart enough. It was not really, so they lended too much support to Chiang Kai-shek. But even that, they never really accommodated the communist regime. And Mao Zedong was not really that anti-American. It was more the Americans that were anti-Chinese. But the big rivalry has always been really between China and the Soviet Union, because at the end of the war, the Soviet Union got a big chunk of territory out of China. And nobody's talking about it. Because the Soviet Union came over. At the end of the war, after they won the war against Germany, they moved all the way to Japan. They went to war with Japan, and they got a big chunk of China off for themselves. Because at that time, China was really disadvantaged. They didn't see the war going off. It was very easy to get a big piece of China. So actually, the Americans were not smart enough to figure out that yes, it was a communist, but it was not anti-American. And the friendship between Soviet and China could not endure. And as a matter of fact, did not endure. And it's being revitalized now. And so they treated China as an enemy for many, many years. And that has ingrained a lot of resentment that the Chinese did not have before. Now, obviously, what's happening is on the geopolitical sense, the Chinese, they need to import everything they have, basically. They need to import 50. I mean, they only self-sufficient in coal. For the rest, they're not self-sufficient. They need to import every material, like they have to import iron ore, they have to import even different kinds of coal, because there's coal for steel, there's coal for power, and some of that is not enough. They have to import oil, they have to import gas, they have to import zinc, manganese, and so on. So, and to secure, they have to import more and more food, so they would like to have control over their own seas. Okay? But the Americans have always had a hand in the Pacific. So now the contention is, who the South Seas, who do they belong to? And China would like to say, look, I don't want to be a global power, but I want to control my seas. This is the whole point about the islands and so on. So there is a growing rivalry. The feeling, my feeling is the public opinion in the US is not very pro-China at all. There's not much knowledge, but there's a lot of campaigning on the Chinese stealing our jobs, that kind of stuff. And while in reality, keep in mind, the 60% of Chinese exports are being done by multinationals. It wasn't the Chinese, it was the multinationals who moved production to China and made money on the arbitrage. Okay? Not that China is totally innocent, but when it comes down to the technology theft and some things of that sort. But now you have this growing rivalry that's becoming also like a strategic rivalry. So while economically they're very interdependent, they have common interest. For example, they don't want to have the Middle East blow up. They don't like to have the Middle East blow up because they import oil from the Middle East. None of them want to have it blow up in the Middle East. None of them like Muslim. Chinese don't like them very much. So these are China export to the US, also makes investment in the US. So economically there is a balance. The US says they would like to import less, that it maybe should go up. This discussion should be settled. The discussion is finally settled. So the whole discussion revolves around who controls the South Pacific, the South Seas, what the Chinese say the China Seas. Now, it would be, this game would be no match, no discussion, if it wasn't for the fact that apparently China moved and bullied. So in a few years you had a collision with Vietnam, a collision with the Philippines, a collision with Japan, a collision with India, plus you had the North Korea crisis. Okay? So basically the Chinese managed to piss off most of their neighbors. This is... Pardon me? Go ahead. I don't understand, China. Harmony. See, well, the harmony did not happen. They said, they keep saying it was a harmonious development. Harmony did not happen. So most of Asia is very skeptical of Myanmar even switched sides. Myanmar was very China dominated and switched side. and now they opened up and they opened up to the West. Philippines is totally, let alone South Korea, Japan, also being pro-US, and Singapore pro-US. Indonesia is very skeptical. Vietnam is switching over to the US, well, US protection. What else is left? India, by definition, like recent poll, 85% of Indians see China as their natural enemy. So, you know, in the end, China is managed in one way. The situation is such that most of China's neighborhood are pissed off at China. Now, if you talk to Chinese, they say this is being orchestrated by the US and art behind the scene so that they could stay there. Because what's really happening is the Chinese now are back in force in the Pacific, in the South Seas, because nobody wants them to leave. The South Koreans want them because they want to face North Korea. The Filipinos obviously had nothing they wanted. The Vietnamese opened their harbor to the repair of US ships, so the big French. Myanmar opened to China. I mean, everybody wanted. There's a renewed alliance with India. Even India want them back. So I just now, if you talk to the Chinese, they say yes, this has been orchestrated by the Americans behind the scenes. So there is this current thing. Is the US behind the scene is stirring them up in such a way they want us to come. But there's no question that the public opinion, if you do a public opinion poll in each of these countries, the public opinion is strongly anti-Chinese. I mean, let alone, I mean, yeah, for some reason. So this is the standoff. Well, we're like, America have the easy way out because this is, yes, we do the Pacific people because they want us there. We're being called in. Now, this new administration, John Kerry, is less antagonistic, is less favorable to this new situation. So everybody, there is a visit by President Xi Jinping in September to California to see Obama, and everybody's predicting it's going to be like the famous 79 visit that Deng Xiaoping wore the cowboy hat. I think it's going to be alright. Which may as well be because the two countries need to get along. They have too many issues in common. Even Korea is an issue they have in common. None of them manage fuck up in North Korea. I mean, you know, let alone Chinese. None of them really wants it. But the situation is sort of tense. And one objective thing is that in this need to acquire technology, this I can tell you objective because I experienced myself in the need to acquire technology. Chinese take it however it comes. Either they buy it or they find some way to get it. But the violation of technology and patent right is still rampant in China. This is one big thing. This is the thing that probably bugs me the most of all. I mean, I don't, you know, I think whether China wants to control over the major sea supply lines, I find it is nothing to be criticized. I mean, naturally, everybody would want that, okay? But the systematic intellectual theft is a little bit too much. And it's still going on, like I've seen it personally, that bugs me. Because you're in a world now that is everything. And by doing so, they also hurt themselves. Because the Chinese, this is the stifling of innovation. Because the Chinese say, why should I innovate myself? Because tomorrow the Chinese can copy me. There's a big inhibiting factor to Chinese innovation, the fact that this is, you don't get it. I mean, this is a big issue. I have one of in this TCOM group, Chinese, made a factory, a carbon fiber factory here near Faenza, and we didn't really get it, why and so on. And then we get it. They said, look, even if it cost us like the product costs 50% more to be manufactured here, if you do it in China, we have a competitive advantage of 2-3 months. Then we lose all the staff and everything. So having the factory here and allows us to have a more sustainable competitive advantage. Because much more people are much less likely to be able to copy us. And many times since Chinese industry comes into district, very similar in some regard to Italy. I mean, district make furniture, another district they make lighters, in another district they make pens, in another district they come in districts. So the diffusion innovation happens instantly because everybody knows. I remember once visiting a guy who was making coating machinery, and a machine does coating for furniture, for wood. And he said, well, yeah, I can upgrade my machine, but I got a new factory like 3,000 miles away. They're over there, I can finally move up to a higher degree of higher level of machinery, because here in the district I can't with copy me. We wasted money with copy me in a few weeks. That is something I'm not really too keen about. But there is a growing rivalry, a growing feeling of Cold War, which really has no reason to exist, because climate is a problem for both. Global warming is a tremendous problem for China, more so for China than for the US, Middle East, big problem, and more so for China because the US will become self-sufficient, but China will depend on the Middle East more and more. The US eventually in a few years will become self-sufficient. It's already an exporter of gas. You have the management of Afghanistan, which is a common problem. The US are getting out. Who's going to settle Afghanistan? So the Chinese have to figure out, because it's too near the border and there are Muslim minorities. So you have North Korea. I mean, all of a sudden, for example, when North Korea did the nuclear test, the third nuclear test, and there were a lot of Weibo people microblogging and criticizing the Chinese government, saying, shit, I mean, this guy making the nuclear bomb, but they're much nearer to Beijing than they are to Washington. So in reality, they say they're developing a nuclear bomb to bomb the Americans, but they can bomb us in a second. Should we let our next door neighbor develop highly advanced nuclear capabilities? So Chinese public opinion was criticizing the government for allowing North Korea to do that. That was really funny. That would happen. So that whole public opinion is taking a stand. So the relationship is complex. I'm not particularly negative. For example, in terms of doing business, in terms of managing, getting Chinese money into Europe is a piece of cake. Because Europe and China are like whiskey and soda, they don't have strategic rivalries. But US and China, they do have strategic zones of contention over the Pacific. Also, the Americans are not sure that the Chinese want to stop there, wants to go all the way into the Pacific. There's an awful harassment going on in the sea. If you read the US Navy reports, there's a lot of harassment going on. So the Americans are afraid that the Chinese didn't really mean to stay within their southeast. They were going to go beyond. They were going to go way deep into the Pacific. There's also that issue. Okay. So as far as if you want to invest Chinese money you want to get minority stakes in shale, gas, properties, minority, no problem. If you want to buy treasury, US treasury bonds, no problem. If you want to buy US strategic industrial assets, forget it. You don't let the Chinese touch it. So my business would not exist. This cross-border business would not exist between US and China. I wish it did, because I live in Boston, I'd like to be there, it would be much easier. Would have been easier for me to develop the US and Germany. And I don't know German, I have to go to Germany to get the thing going. But cross-border between industrial, between US and China doesn't exist. A complicated relationship. And of course, in the public opinion war, the Chinese always lose. Because they have no media. They have no control of the media. By not allowing, okay, if you don't allow competition in the sector, you end up not being sophisticated in that sector. I mean, so the international media control, the media world is controlled by an Anglo-Saxon organization. Whether it is Thomson Reuters, whether it's Bloomberg, whether it is Dow Jones, whether it is the Financial Times, they make the opinion in the world. And the Chinese, you can see Xinhua, CCTV, China Daily, but these are like the party media, so you know that they're very boring to read. I don't read them myself, I scan them. They're very boring. You know, there's not much. So it's so like when it gets down to influence the public opinion, what is the soft power? So what I mean? If you don't, and if you don't have media competition, if you don't have an open media world, you're not going to be good at managing media. So that the world will never buy a China story. You see what I mean? This I've been trying to tell anytime. The world is not going to buy a China story. Because they don't know how to deliver it. Because to have you buy, they have to have you buy their side of the story, they have to articulate way, they have to be very skilled to have you buy it. How do they deliver it to anybody? I don't know. How do they deliver it to anybody? Now, in the beginning, in the early years, I used to read a lot about China Daily, CCTV. Now I don't even bother because I know what the story is. You don't change much. You don't have any conflictual article. They're very bland. The stories are very short. They get reported by international press anyway. What the heck do I care? They always tell me the official view is, and that's it. Bloomberg tell me the views of such and such, and the views of the Chinese government as expressed, as you know, and such. I don't even bother. And also in Xinhua, for example, which is the state press agency, if there is a news happening now, before being published, he has to go and be reviewed by Beijing. So inevitably the news in Xinhua is 8-9 hours old. So by the time Xinhua comes out with the news, the whole world has read the same news all over the place. You don't even have the advantage of speed. Get it? So they're not being able to manage the public relations side of the house, not understanding how media works, is not having a reputable, independent, international Chinese media is creating a problem. If there was an independent, free Chinese media, we would all read it. Okay? Because it would make sense, but such thing doesn't exist. Which is that hurts China's soft power and credibility very much. The same way it does that they are hurt by the lack of intellectual protection. In developing systems to protect themselves from the outside, they have systems that hurt their own development.
How do the Chinese media handle the big inner political scandals? Like,
There are no mention.
Huh?
No, they were totally ignored, very little, only at the end, not much. But people, the Chinese don't even care. The Chinese go on the microblogging, they know everything instantly. I was there when Bossy Live, there are all those microblogging, this Weibo, WeChat, and I'm on Weibo, WeChat. The Weibo, my assistant does it. WeChat is the English word. They get everything, they do everything. But they stay away from the official, not to read the official stuff. I mean, do you read the official, do you read the people daily?
No.
It doesn't even consider it. She's probably on Weibo or WeChat and she gets, but the fact is that Weibo is in Chinese, so it's like, can't, they have their own things.
Only for those people who work for government.
Yeah.
It does sound like the rubbish.
Yeah. They buy to understand what's going on, what that really means, what's behind to understand the power games, and yeah.
So they can talk about something when they have a meeting.
Yeah. You see, you have China, Yeah,
My family, almost all of the members in my family work all for the government.
so they have to read the official.
We didn't have a report, we have to know how to say it.
And then their own kids go abroad, they come back and make fun of them. No, they show respect. I'll leave you. so yeah, this is things I would. These are things I would. I think that China has to move into a service economy. China cannot have a development similar to a Western country. You can't have the same number of family, and so on. It cannot be like that materialistic. Because there's not enough land, they'll have to pay the whole of China, because Chinese live in a small portion of the country. The population is not widespread, because some places are not really easily livable, like Tibet, so they have to improve the service sector very much. They can not all have like a second home on the hills and so on, not enough space. They have the whole Shanghai moving for the weekend. So they have to have a very advanced service economy. But when you talk about services, there are two sectors that are very, very important to have a service economy. One is financial services, and the second is media. And those are just the two sectors that are like heavily controlled. So how can you have like development if there's no competition? This is one of the contradictions. Guys, you just, I see you read at the end of the course, at the end of, any more questions? Or I'll let you go. They can't wait to run away.
Just one more question. I just wanted to know, how do you establish a network, especially when you first time enter Chinese markets? Focus more on the government's resources for personal.
My network,
It's hard actually.
Eh?
It's hard.
how do I do it now? Well,
If you don't mind.
yeah, well, at the beginning, my network was very institutional. I mean, it was government to government and something like that. It was very, very institutional. And in that regard, George's father was very well thought of by Chinese. It gave me a fantastic help, gave me a lot of credibility. So it was mainly institutional. And we did well, I think. And then, after this, I gave a lot of empowerment to my people do all the partying in the world. Okay? And it's all about networks. They're always on the phone, they're always at dinner, they're always like, and me, I move very much in like cyber media. Okay, so I moved into with the blog. I got the blog on Taijin. It was, which is the most independent economic business magazine in China. And I basically leveraged on the fact that it was like a pioneer, this outbound Chinese investment. So I had a big story to tell. So I leveraged very much on this experience, and I leveraged very much on web and media. So more than personal relationships. So I get invited to a lot of speaking conferences. I get a lot of journalists calling me to have tips and news but I really pushed the professional side. I did also drinking, but that didn't produce, I did a lot of drinking. I'm very good at drinking, I'm very friendly, I can drink a lot, I'm very heavy, and it's very difficult to get me drunk. Especially on a full stomach, I'm almost undrinkable. Okay?
Could you eat?
So, I'm too heavy. I'm 120 kilos. I know that they're gonna gang up against me to make me drunk. So my trick, you know what it is? I show up at dinner with a full stomach. On a full stomach, it's just impossible to get drunk. On a full stomach. If I'm on an empty stomach, you get drunk. They basically gang up against you. So everybody comes and cheer you up, and you have to toast with everybody cafe. So at the end you're dead. No, on an empty stomach, I can hold a lot because it's also a question of to get 120 kilos drunk is more difficult to get 70 kilos drunk, because I have to go slower place. So I really push the professional side. So the media, the blogging, the distribution of my blogs, my Weibo, my blog in Chinese, my blog in English, and the professional channels. I don't do business because I'm a big friend of and I have my own body and do things. No, that's not my way of doing things. I do have friends, but they are Chinese friends. But there is also a very good professional link. He's a governor of some bank. There's some international interest, and we have an intellectual exchange at that level. But they don't have like a buddy where I go to KTV with. You see what I mean? I'm not like a KTV man. I don't do that kind of stuff. No, me. So I really push the professional thing. So people see me as the old bald man who knows a lot about Chinese investment and knows a lot about Europe, knows about China. That's how they view me. And also by speaking my mind. I mean, the thing I told you, I say even at the party meeting. If you go on Weibo, if you go on my YouTube, there are speeches given to the party where I just say the same thing. Last time I had lunch at the party on Thursday. It was last week, not even a week ago. Yeah, a week ago. And I said, guys, it was lunch at the party, and it was a very good lunch. It was a foreign The party has the international department, which is sort of like the foreign affairs, and the top guys there, and some guys just piss the whole world off. You know, this and this, and that's a lot of discussion about, but it's not our fault, it's America, they're stir things up together. And then you'll see when Xi Jinping will go to California, it will be like the damn thing that happens. But you know, I made a reputation for being straight and they will respect. If you tell the truth, they respect you. That's it. Keep your word. So main institutional. I don't have buddies. I don't play golf. I don't do like KTVs. No KTV, no. So in those rooms, no windows, I go crazy, drinking all the whiskey. No, it's not my style, you know. No, I can't do that. It's like, to me, I've done some, but it's not like, you know, it's no, the Chinese you go that way, to me it's not a big deal. I can't wait to be out and like to be closed in a small room and then you have to play dice and come on, just no. You love TV? Yeah, I respect that. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but to me I became claustrophobic. And then there is you mean karaoke or KTV?
Oh, KTV.
How do you like KTV?
Yeah, for me it's the same thing, KTV and karaoke.
No.
Oh, karaoke.
No, there's a big difference between karaoke and KTV.
Oh, then
You like karaoke, not KTV. Because there's a big difference. And I'm not allowed to say what the difference is, but there's a big difference.
yeah.
No, okay. First of all, now there's a big difference. In terms of karaoke, first of all, I've always been a bad singer. When I was in elementary school and we used to sing, the teacher asked me to leave because I was just like getting the sound like wrong. So I'm a terrible singer. I'm a terrible ear for music. I don't know music, so I would have trouble doing karaoke in Italian because I don't know. Plus, in China, you do have karaoke with Chinese music. What the fuck am I supposed to say? I mean, they have their own music. I mean, they don't have my music. So not only I'm not good at singing, not only I'm not good at doing it in Italy, but in China, less and less. Okay? So this is Champ side. Plus, there is plus. Plus, this happened in a close environment. In general, with a lot of alcohol, and I think I had it as far as, but hard. I mean, like whiskey and stuff, and so to me, I'm not. So my networking in China is primarily through media and social networks in English, and my staff takes care of my social networks in Chinese. So I do have Weibo. Basically, they go on my Facebook, get my things, and translate them into Chinese and put them on Weibo.
Facebook in Chinese is
Now, for example, LinkedIn, yes. I do have 16,340 LinkedIn contacts. I have 16,340 LinkedIn contacts. And LinkedIn is allowed in China, so I have a lot of Chinese on LinkedIn, for example. And I say the same things I say on Facebook. So I mean, they're blocking Facebook, they get to see. Because I use Hootsuite, which is an application that I put it on Hootsuite, it gets on Twitter, my Facebook timeline, my fan page, my group, and LinkedIn. So I say. And then all my articles, the one that appear on the blog, appear in China. And I'm never censored. I mean, never censored.
Nowadays, with young people, it's for some migrant that Italian, they want to learn the Chinese language if they don't have that background from government or the person.
that particular case, then I had backup from government. The way I entered, I had a strong backup from Chinese government. Yeah, yeah. So if you look at me, I don't have, I do all my business as institution. It's public, transparent, government to government, embassy to embassy. Yeah, I mean, my background, I don't have like a close group of Chinese and very close to, and we do our own business now. I go to KTV with, I play golf, and no.
I know some of my friends like this because after the graduate they want to enter the Chinese market. So sometimes when we talk about this, you know, I think we think.
What?
I mean, what do you say just now, like impossible? I mean,
Yeah, either you have good government relationship, or you know some, you just, I mean, you can only go to China if you have trusted Chinese around you, otherwise let it go. Impossible. Impenetrable. You know, just like I happen, in the meantime, I have to have my own staff, and we go together. And I asked them about China, they do nothing. I mean, they do. I said, what should they do, Jenny? And she told me, yes, no. It's so nice not to have to think and give orders, but to receive them at times. Also because they know that they don't have to make an appointment for me in the morning, so they know how. Yeah, China is impenetrable. This is how I started my whole visibility of China in TV, and this is how I end by saying it takes the Chinese to be the Chinese. The European cannot ever be the Chinese in China. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if there are other questions, I'll take them all.
I have to make a question.
Hey, thank you.
I always have this question on mind. You know, in the West, there is this, it's about women, how to women make business in China, because it's very complex sometimes, because of the supremacy of the man, of the CEO, of the men. How do you see that approach for women to making business with, in an institution that is managed by men and by supremacy? How do you see that?
But, well, first of all, let me tell you that Chinese women are extremely intelligent. And they're so much superior to men. That's to be said. The gap is astonishing. Well, yes, China is a male-dominated society, but compared to other countries, women hold a big role. So it's still, I mean, in the political is all men, okay? And all the key people are men. There are, you know, at the most, there's been like a woman, Madame Wee, who became vice prime minister. That's the highest a woman has ever got. But both in business, there are some very powerful women, like the owner of Nine Dragon, one of the biggest companies that makes packaging and so on, is a woman. Also, the wives of the entrepreneur are very powerful. And many times, you really don't go through a businessman unless you meet his wife. His wife has a big role. It's hidden, but generally it's the wife who keeps the money and keeps the finance. So I think in politics, yeah, politics is very much male-dominated. But in business, women may have a lower profile, but a bigger role than you think they do have. And they're doomed to have a bigger and bigger role. I mean, in a society which is opening up, their capabilities are coming up so incredibly. So I think not very chauvinistic. To my standard, China is not very chauvinistic. It's not. Yeah, it's true. There's male supremacy. It's not like not as bad as any other country. West and the US either. Only Brazil did. No, Chinese women are on top, really. I mean, all my colleagues on the top are no women. They're more adaptive, more open, more flexible, more sensitive, much better skill language. What do we have?
Other question? Okay. I think we can stop here. Thank you, Alberto.
Thanks to you for listening.
Thank you very much.